Today's my first day at work, and somehow, the whole city decided today was the perfect day for traffic. Rule number 1. When your manager calls on your first day, your heartbeat automatically doubles. I was already preparing my apology before he even said hello. First lesson: leave your house earlier than Google Maps tells you. POV. It's your first day at your dream job, and somehow, you ended up here. You were late, made a huge mistake, and now your boss wants to talk. Just a few minutes into the journey, traffic came to a complete stop. You checked your phone, looked at the time, and refreshed your maps over and over again, hoping the traffic would disappear. Instead, it only got worse. Every passing minute made you more anxious. By the time you finally arrived, you were already late. Your heart was racing, and your first instinct was to panic. But before walking into the building, you stopped for a second, took a deep breath, and reminded yourself that one bad moment doesn't have to ruin the rest of your day. As you stepped through the entrance, everyone around you looked like they knew exactly where they were going. Meanwhile, you were trying not to look completely lost. You walked over to the reception desk, smiled politely, introduced yourself, and asked where you needed to go. Sometimes, asking for help is the smartest thing you can do. While waiting, you quietly observed the people around you. You noticed how everyone communicated, how they greeted one another, and how they carried themselves. Every workplace has its own culture, and learning it starts by paying attention. A few moments later, your manager walked over to welcome you. You stood up, smiled, and shook his hand confidently. First impressions aren't about pretending to know everything. They're about showing respect, professionalism, and a willingness to learn. Next, you were introduced to your new teammates. There were so many names that it felt impossible to remember all of them. But that's completely normal. Everyone has been the new person at some point, so don't be afraid to ask someone to repeat their name if you forget it. After the introductions, you were shown your desk. It didn't look like much, but this would be your workspace from now on. You took a moment to organize your things before rushing into work. Starting with a clear workspace often helps create a clear mind. Just as you started feeling comfortable, your manager handed you your very first assignment. Suddenly, everything became real. You looked at the instructions and realized you'd never done anything exactly like this before. Instead of pretending to understand everything, you asked a senior coworker for help. Never be afraid to ask questions. Learning is always better than pretending you already know. As the morning continued, you paid close attention to how people work together. Every workplace has unwritten rules, and the fastest way to understand them is by observing before speaking too much. Then something unexpected happened. One of your coworkers invited you to lunch. You accepted the invitation, joined the group, and quickly realized that building good relationships doesn't require being the loudest person in the room. Sometimes, listening is enough. The afternoon started well. You felt more relaxed and more confident than you did that morning. Maybe this first day wasn't going to be so bad after all. Then it happened. While working on your first assignment, you accidentally sent the wrong document. The moment you realized what you'd done, your heart sank. You stared at your screen, hoping there was some magical undo button that could erase the mistake. There wasn't. For a few seconds, you thought about pretending it never happened. But deep down, you knew that would only make things worse. So you walked straight to your manager's office and admitted what had happened. Those few seconds waiting for his response felt longer than the entire day. Then something completely unexpected happened. Instead of getting angry, your manager smiled. He looked at you and said, "Mistakes happen. What matters isn't whether you make them. What matters is whether you learn from them and take responsibility." Those words instantly changed the way you looked at the rest of the day. From that moment on, you stopped worrying about being perfect. Instead, you focused on learning, improving, and asking questions whenever you weren't sure about something. You even started writing important things down so you wouldn't forget them. It's a simple habit, but one that can make a huge difference during your first few weeks at any job. By the afternoon, everything felt different. You were no longer scared of making mistakes because you understood that every mistake was simply another opportunity to learn. Just when you thought the day was finally going smoothly, your manager walked over to your desk and quietly said, "Can you come to my office for a minute?" Immediately, your mind started replaying everything that had happened since you arrived that morning. Being late, forgetting names, sending the wrong document. You convinced yourself that this was it. The walk to your manager's office somehow felt longer than the entire workday. You stopped outside the door, took one deep breath, knocked gently, and heard a calm voice say, "Come in." You slowly sat down, expecting the worst. But instead of criticizing you, your manager smiled again. He said, "I know today didn't go exactly the way you planned. You were late because of traffic, you made a few mistakes, and you had a lot to learn. But you stayed respectful, asked questions, admitted your mistakes, and kept trying. Those are the qualities we're looking for." At that moment, every bit of stress you had been carrying all day completely disappeared. You walked out of the office with a smile on your face, feeling like a completely different person from the one who had walked into the building that morning. As the workday came to an end, you packed your bag and looked around the office one last time. This morning you had walked through those doors feeling nervous, uncertain, and afraid of making mistakes. Now you were leaving with something much more valuable than confidence. You were leaving with experience. Nobody expects you to know everything on your first day. They simply expect you to be willing to learn. So if tomorrow is your first day at a new job, remember this. Be respectful to everyone you meet. Ask questions when you're unsure. Take responsibility for your mistakes. Observe before you speak. And never compare your first day to someone else's 100th. Everyone starts somewhere. What's one lesson you learned on your first day at work? Let me know in the comments, and follow for more POV stories.